Why is it so hard to think clearly, especially when it matters most? Almost everyone thinks they are a good thinker, but few people really are. A truly great thinker is constantly growing and evolving, so look around you. How many people do you see moving forward in life? How many people do you see solving problem after problem? And on the contrary, how many people do you see running in circles? How many people do you see still trying to solve the same problems they were working on years ago? The better you get at thinking, the better you get at solving problems. And good thinking begins with clarity. A clear thought is unambiguous, captures the essence of a thing, and is formulated logically. Have you ever found yourself overwhelmed, not by the world, but by your own thoughts? Trapped in loops of overthinking, dragged by emotions you don't fully understand, unsure what to do next. Not because there's no path forward, but because your mind is fogged. You are not alone. In fact, this is one of the oldest problems in human history, and few have explored it more deeply or more practically than Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who ruled the world but spent every morning ruling himself. And if you want to think clearly and improve your ability to solve your own problems, it would be wise of you to organize your thoughts. Reduce their ambiguity and make them clear by turning them into simple if-then statements. Clear logic leads to clear thoughts. Clear thoughts lead to clear and intentional action. Clear and intentional action leads to clear feedback. Clear feedback leads to an improved understanding of the world, and a clearer understanding of the world leads to a better ability to solve problems. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius is one of the most famous and well-known Stoic philosophers of all time. He was a Roman emperor from 161 to 180 AD, and he was the last ruler from a line later known as the Five Good Emperors. He was in one of the highest positions of power in the world at the time, and would have access to the realization of all his temptations and desires, should he wish for them. But instead, he dedicated his life to fairness and justice. During his rule, Aurelius found the time to construct a series of autobiographical writings, now known as the Meditations, which has become one of the most important texts within Stoic philosophy. Marcus didn't write meditations for an audience. He wrote it for himself, a daily practice of clear thinking amidst chaos. He was the most powerful man in the world, yet every morning he battled the same things we battle today: distractions, frustration, fear, anger, fatigue, doubt. In the Meditations, Aurelius describes guides on how to improve oneself. These were mostly focused on taking a cosmic perspective and critically analyzing your judgment on yourself and others. As a leader of a powerful empire that experienced multiple wars during his rule, Aurelius used his own Stoic philosophy to let go of stress and worries and to be the very best and reliable leader he could be. So how did he do it? How did he learn to see clearly, act rationally, and lead with wisdom? The answer begins with Stoicism, the ancient school of thought that taught men and women how to master their emotions, clarify their judgments, and live according to reason. But Marcus took it further. He wasn't just a philosopher. He was a living embodiment of Stoic thinking in the storm of real power, real pain, and real responsibility. The Stoics strongly believed that doing the right thing was the key to individual happiness, and that in order to do the right thing, sound judgment and clear, rational thinking was necessary. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. This is the essence of clear thinking. According to Marcus, our mental chaos arises not from life's events, but from our judgments about them. We mislabel discomfort as disaster. We confuse emotion for truth. We let other people's opinions distort our perception like a cracked mirror. Marcus Aurelius divided the human experience into two realms: what is within our control and what is not. Clear thinking for him meant keeping our attention strictly on what we can govern: our thoughts, our reactions, our intentions. When you live like this, you think differently. You stop blaming the weather, traffic, the economy, or other people for your emotional state. You realize that most of your suffering comes from thought, not reality. You begin to filter every situation through reason, not panic. But here's the deeper problem. Most people don't think clearly because they've never been taught how. They confuse reaction for reflection. They live by emotion and call it authenticity. They follow the herd and call it common sense. And so, like Marcus warned, they become ruled not by emperors but by impulse. In this video, we'll break down how to think clearly in 5 parts, starting with how to master your inner dialogue, how to respond to chaos. That is not all. Make sure you stick to the end to think clearly, all inspired by Marcus Aurelius himself. Because as he once wrote, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. 1. Mastering the inner dialogue. Why do our thoughts often feel like enemies rather than allies? It's a strange paradox. We live in our own heads, and yet we often feel like strangers or prisoners there. We get ambushed by old regrets, imagined futures, and distorted fears. We rehearse worst-case scenarios as if preparing for war, and worst of all, we believe the noise inside our minds without questioning where it came from. But Marcus Aurelius didn't accept this chaos. He trained his mind like a warrior trains his sword. His philosophy was not about silencing thoughts, but about disciplining them. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Marcus Aurelius. This is why the Stoics, and Marcus especially, put so much emphasis on dialogue with the self. The quality of your life, Marcus believed, is directly tied to the quality of your inner conversation. So ask yourself, what exactly is inner dialogue, and how do we master it? Inner dialogue is not just random mental chatter. It's your ongoing interpretation of the world. It shapes what you perceive, how you feel, and what you do. If left unchecked, it becomes a tool of self-deception. But if trained, it becomes a weapon of clarity. The Stoics believed that the mind is like a courtroom. Every event that happens outside of us is brought in for judgment. And in that courtroom, you are the judge. You decide if something is good, bad, or indifferent. You decide whether to react with anger or accept with calm. You decide what story to tell. Today I escaped anxiety. Or no, I discarded it because it was within me, in my own perceptions, not outside. You see, most people never question their first thought. They let their emotions write the headlines. He ignored my text. He must hate me. I failed the exam. My life is over. They didn't applaud. I'm not good enough. But Marcus teaches us to challenge the story, to slow it down, to ask, is this true? Is this helpful? Is this in my control? Because once you realize that emotions are not facts, that thoughts are not commands, you unlock an extraordinary power, detachment. Not the kind that makes you cold or distant, but the kind that gives you space to pause, reflect, and choose a response aligned with wisdom, not instinct. What does it feel like to gain that kind of clarity? Imagine this. You receive criticism. Instead of getting defensive, you calmly ask, is there truth in this? You face rejection. Instead of collapsing into self-pity, you think, was I aiming at the right goal? You feel anxiety rising. Instead of letting it consume you, you trace it back to its cause and breathe. You are not suppressing emotion, you are commanding it. This is what Marcus meant when he said, you have to assemble your life yourself, action by action, and be satisfied if each one achieves its goal as far as possible. He reminds us, one thought at a time, one judgment at a time, one breath at a time. Why haven't most people achieved this yet? Because it's easier to blame. It's easier to outsource responsibility to fate, God, luck, or upbringing. It's easier to remain a victim of one's own mind than to take ownership of it. But this path, Marcus Aurelius' path, is the harder one. It demands effort. It demands that we become philosophers in the trenches of everyday life. And it starts with a question. What am I telling myself about this moment? And is it helping me? The goal isn't to control everything. It's to control how you think about everything. And in doing so, you liberate yourself. Because the clearest mind is the one that watches itself, and the strongest mind is the one that listens without blindly believing. 2. Train your perception. Marcus Aurelius says, choose not to be harmed and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed and you haven't been. One of the greatest lessons of Stoicism is to take control of your perception. We're used to judging everything we come across. Any event we experience, any people we meet, sights we see, all of them get a value judgment. Something was either bad, good, boring, fun, beautiful, ugly, etc. This is, unbeknownst to us, a very exhausting practice, and also one that might affect our lives for the worse. For example, judging every interaction you have on a particularly hard day as awful gives the day itself an even more negative view. If you label a party you went to as boring, that is all it will be, that one boring part of your week. We often let our initial judgments of things be influenced by our emotions, which means that they are most likely not entirely rational. Furthermore, our tendency to judge every moment of our lives goes hand in hand with a tendency to talk in metaphors and hyperboles that make things seem worse. If you get dumped by your partner, you might say your ex broke your heart, instead of the fundamental fact that they no longer feel for you the way they used to. This way of speaking, or rather, this way of thinking, shapes how you feel. It is not the actual event that makes you feel bad, but rather the way you unconsciously choose to think about it. The Stoics, in contrast, encourage people to be careful to judge everything you come across and the things that you do, and one of the ways to be careful is to undo your judgments, which essentially means to look past them, to be able to forget your first instinct, and to judge something through a more optimistic and reasonable lens. You can try to reframe that boring party in your mind as an event where you got to see a new place and meet some new people. Okay, afterwards you might note that you didn't really resonate with anyone, but you didn't go in with the expectation of negativity. As such, practicing not to judge everything based on your first instinct and emotion is the very best way to start training your perception on life. Whenever you think about anything in an opinionated way, try to ask yourself, is this rational? What have I based my opinion on? Is there a better or more positive way to interpret this? Marcus Aurelius stressed that harms can only be if you consider them as harms. This means that any hard experience you went through seems harder and worse, the harder and worse you consider it to be. As such, you have complete control over how much certain situations affect you. The Stoics also encourage you to see every bad thing that happens as an opportunity or source for good. As an exercise of training your perspective in a Stoic way, there is a challenge called turning the obstacle upside down. When a new coworker is a slow learner and their mistakes affect the company's profits, you might feel frustration. This coworker is an obstacle to what you are trying to achieve: effectiveness, efficiency, and profit. However, this situation can also be an opportunity for good. It is an opportunity for youth to exercise and practice patience, to become a better teacher, to learn how to integrate new people into the company, and how to handle stressful times. All of these are skills that will also be useful later, and should also help you increase profits in the long run as well. On this subject, Marcus Aurelius famously said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." So, all in all, instead of judging everything you come across in an exaggerated sense, take the time to look at things as they objectively are, and you might find that life is simpler and clearer than you thought. Every situation has a more positive interpretation and a more negative one. When you adjust your mindset accordingly, you will find that nothing bothers you as much as it used to, and you will get through life much more easily. 3. Keep virtues in mind. To quote Marcus Aurelius, "Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging." A virtue is an excellence of character, or, simply said, morally good behavior. Morally good behavior benefits not only you and those around you, but the greater good. The Stoics believed in an interdependent universe, that everything and everyone is connected in some way. Thus, according to Stoicism, what is best for the greater good is eventually best for you as well. This is why the Stoics were convinced that the most rational people were people that committed to the greater good, or, in other words, acted virtuously. Not acting virtuous is the result of ignorance, according to Stoics. When life throws you in an unexpected direction, virtues can guide you towards what to do and keep you grounded. This is why the most virtuous people are the calmest and most relaxed. In order to be virtuous, one has to keep the 4 most important virtues of Stoicism in mind: wisdom, justice, temperance, and courage. Wisdom, in the eyes of Stoics, is the ability to judge what is good, bad, in between, or neutral. Instead of being controlled by emotion, one must think clearly and logically as to what would be the morally correct thing to do. When you have two options in a difficult situation, wisdom is the ability to think through both. Then, justice. Justice is acquired through wisdom, and it means doing both what is right and fair to others as well as ourselves. The Stoics regard it as one's duty to both oneself, our fellow men, and society as a whole. The third virtue, courage, is the ability to take action in the face of your own fear, to do what is necessary or helpful even when you do not know you will succeed. Courage is not the elimination of fear, desire, or anxiety. Rather, it is deciding to act and taking steps despite our fear, passion, and anxiety. Lastly, temperance. The other word for temperance is moderation, which means to stay in the middle between two extremes, to make sure to never take too much or too little. In practice, temperance often looks like self-restraint, self-control, or discipline. According to Aurelius, one quality that set humans apart from animals was the ability to stop oneself if necessary. Temperance is important for ensuring our long-term well-being over short-term satisfaction. For a very trivial example, consider a bag of chips. Finishing the entire bag in one go might be nice in the moment, but it is bad for your health and even potentially your mood in some cases. Thus, one should practice self-restraint and stop after the first few bites. Temperance is also aided by wisdom. Only by thinking wisely can you decide how much of something you need to acquire before stopping yourself. The Stoics divided all possible things and actions in the world between goods, evils, and indifference. It was always important to seek out good, avoid evil, and choose the indifference as you please. You create evil when you act against one of these virtues. For example, when you steal from somebody, disrespect someone, act recklessly or cowardly, or make somebody ill. You participate in good when you act according to these virtues, and you do neither when you perform indifferent acts, like taking a walk, for example. These simple rules to live by do not just make you a better person, but they'll make one a more relaxed one. When you act according to the virtues, you are always guided by good, and you are always acting rationally, according to the Stoics. Such behavior creates a calm mind. For responding to chaos. Why do we suffer more in imagination than in reality? Because the mind, when left to run wild, becomes a theater of catastrophe. It builds storms from whispers, monsters from shadows, and tragedies from mere inconvenience. Marcus Aurelius saw this clearly, and he responded not with panic, but with poise. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Marcus Aurelius. This is not a shallow call to just think positive. It's a radical act of sovereignty over the mind. Marcus knew life is not easy, but what makes it harder is the way we think about it. So how do you respond to chaos when it hits? By remembering your power to choose your perception. You can't control what happens, but you can control what it means. And from that meaning flows your emotional response, your next decision, your behavior, and ultimately your destiny. Stoic psychology tells us there are two events every time something bad happens. The external event, which is often neutral. The internal judgment, which is where all your suffering is born. The world gives you data. Your mind writes the narrative. When your friend doesn't reply to your message, that's data. Telling yourself they hate me, I'm unlovable, no one cares, that's the story. Marcus teaches us to hold the data without rushing into drama. Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. Marcus Aurelius. What does that look like in real life? You're late for work, traffic is jammed, the meeting already started. Instead of spiraling into anger, you pause, you breathe. You ask, what part of this is in my control? You can't move the cars, but you can calm your pulse. You can use the time to reflect, to plan, to accept. This is not passivity. This is strategic surrender. It's making peace with what is so you can better shape what will be. This is what Marcus practiced each morning as he rose, reluctantly from bed, reminding himself. When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. He wasn't denying difficulty. He was choosing clarity, choosing action over anxiety, choosing virtue over reaction. Why do we rarely do this ourselves? Because reaction is easier than reflection. It feels more real. It lets us feel justified, angry, victimized. But it also steals our agency. It robs us of clarity. It makes us puppets to our own biology. And so Marcus urges us, slow down. Don't let emotions set fire to your reason. Don't let someone else's chaos become your own. You are not a puppet. You are a citadel. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. What does it feel like to live this way? Like moving through a storm with stillness in your chest. Like walking through noise and hearing only the silence of your own reason. Like no longer needing the world to be calm, because you are. That is how you respond to chaos, not with panic, but with principle. Not with reactivity, but with reason. You don't run from the fire, you become the fire. Disciplined, controlled, focused. Because to think clearly, even in the storm, is to be free from it. 5. Living with purpose. What are you really living for? Most people never ask. They drift from task to task, goal to goal, life stage to life stage, without ever stopping to examine the engine behind it all. And when confusion comes, when emptiness creeps in, they wonder why they feel lost. Marcus Aurelius didn't want to live that way. Neither should you. Let each thing you would do, say, or intend be like that of a dying person. Marcus Aurelius. A radical statement, but not a morbid one. What he's saying is, live deliberately. Live urgently. Live like each act might be your last, because one day it will be. Why do we lose sight of our purpose? Because we mistake distraction for direction. We think scrolling endlessly, chasing validation, or acquiring more will give us meaning. It never does. Marcus warns us of this illusion. Do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about others. It is not your business. Marcus Aurelius. He reminds us, your life is your own. Don't rent it to people who won't even remember your name. Don't dilute your thoughts trying to impress minds that aren't thinking of you. So how do we live with purpose? Answer, by anchoring your thoughts in what truly matters. Clarity is not a mental trick. It's a moral compass. And for Marcus, that compass had a few key directions. Duty, do what the moment asks of you. Virtue, be honest, courageous, just, and self-disciplined. Simplicity, don't complicate what's already enough. Mortality, remember death, it sharpens life. He writes, concentrate every minute on doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness, tenderly, willingly, with justice. It's not about becoming famous, praised, or remembered. It's about being useful, good, and present, now. But what if you don't know your purpose? Then your purpose is to find it. And Marcus would say, begin with the smallest thing you can do well. A task done in harmony with reason, with integrity, is already a purposeful act. Are you a student? Then study with your full attention. A parent? Then be patient and wise. An employee? Then work as if your effort matters, because it does. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Marcus Aurelius. Even your obstacles, even your confusion, they are part of the path. Use them. Let them form you. Let them teach you how to endure, how to rise, how to begin again. What does it feel like to live this way? You no longer measure your day by how much you got done, but by how well you lived. Not just in the big things, but in the tone of your voice, the quality of your thoughts, the honesty of your actions. You go to sleep not exhausted by chaos, but at peace with your effort. This is clarity. This is strength. This is what it means to live like a philosopher, not just in theory, but in practice. Marcus Aurelius wasn't a man with time for abstraction. He ruled an empire, faced wars, betrayal, plague, and death. Yet he wrote calmly, lived simply, thought deeply, and left behind a book, Meditations, that whispers across centuries. Think clearly, live wisely, and let your reason be stronger than your fear. Mastering the inner dialogue. What do you hear when you're alone with your thoughts? A voice of calm reason or a storm of self-doubt? Most people live with a mind at war, torn between what they know is right and what their impulses demand, pulled by the opinions of others, haunted by the past, anxious about the future. In this chaos, clarity becomes rare. But Marcus Aurelius believed it didn't have to be this way. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. This is where clear thinking begins, not by changing the world around you, but by changing your relationship with your own mind. Why is inner dialogue so important? Because everything you perceive, everything you experience, passes through the filter of your thoughts. If your thoughts are confused, anxious, or petty, then your entire life feels that way. But if your thoughts are calm, focused, and just you can have clarity even in chaos. Our life is what our thoughts make it. Marcus Aurelius. So let's ask the question Marcus often asked himself. What am I telling myself, and is it true? What distorts our inner dialogue? Marcus identifies several culprits. Judgment, we don't suffer events, we suffer our judgments about them. Desire, we want what we can't have and we suffer when we don't get it. Fear, we imagine futures that haven't happened and live as if they already have. Ego, we seek praise, validation, status, things outside our control. These distortions cloud our vision. They replace what is with what we wish or fear. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. Marcus Aurelius. Clarity, then, is a discipline. It's not just thinking, it's thinking about your thinking. It's the ability to pause, examine, and then respond, rather than react. So how do we purify the inner voice? 1. Journal your thoughts. This is exactly what Marcus did. His meditations are personal notes, reminders to himself. Write down your mental noise, see it on paper. Often, this alone will calm it. 2. Challenge your judgments. Ask, is this really bad or is it just inconvenient? Marcus trained himself to see hardship as opportunity, not because he was naive, but because he was disciplined. 3. Reframe fear with reason. Fear exaggerates, reason corrects. Instead of, what if this ruins everything, ask, what if this teaches me something? Or 4. Practice presence. The clearest thinking comes in the now. Marcus trained his mind to return again and again to the present moment. Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present. Marcus Aurelius. What does it feel like to master your inner dialogue? Imagine a mind that doesn't panic when plans fall apart, a mind that doesn't obsess over what others think, a mind that isn't controlled by envy or fear or regret. It feels like freedom, like strength, like coming home to yourself. And it's possible, if you train, as Marcus did, every single day. Because in the end, clear thinking is not a gift, it's a practice, and the battlefield is your mind.